remember my co-waitress was Sarah Lowndes, who then married Bob Dylan, who was playing his music down the street at the Cafe Wa. And we were all waiting on tables, and we were living on our tips. You can't live on $7 an hour or $2.31.
I remember how happy I was to get that job as a server. And the instant report card that I would get from every customer that I served, it was the tip.
I remember working late one night at a restaurant, and this group of customers were very displeased with the speed of the food coming out, and on the kitchen side, everything was sort of going wonky. Had it not been for the relationship that I built with those customers, had it not been for the dynamic and the hospitality, they emphasized that they never would have come back to that restaurant.
I remember my first waiting job was when I was 19 years old, and I moved to New York from Kentucky to be an actor, and I worked at Houlihan's restaurant, which was on the ground floor of the Empire State Building. And you did not make enough money for your hourly wages to pay your bills, so you really relied on tips to pay for your food and your rent and your clothes. You needed those tips for survival.
I remember when my husband was a waiter. He sacrificed and took the job so that I could pursue my dreams as an actress in California, while he stood back with our two daughters in Chicago. It was a really tough time for us.
I remember I was actually at Chili's with a friend, and this one person, he's just, so attentive, all of that, checking in, everything, the whole bit, and you could tell that he'd been doing it a while, but he still kind of brushed past probably a lot of bad customers and everything, and still kind of gave that great kind of positive service.
I remember this one time, my wife and I were at a restaurant and we were getting terrible service. So we were like, you know what, we're just gonna tip this guy like 10% because he just did a terrible job. And that makes me think, whenever waiters don't have the option to make tips anymore, think about how bad your service is gonna be. I mean, you ain't ever finna get a refill on that Coca-Cola.
We did not get to keep our tips. The owner of the restaurant would collect the money that we were given at the end of the day, and he would just pocket it. And I didn't really know any better, so I didn't bother arguing with the guy, but I remember talking to one of my friends about this, and she was like, what the were you thinking?
So if you take away tips from servers, that's like the livelihood of most of the people that are up and coming in the entertainment industry who are waiting tables to survive. Don't do it.
A special Fox News report. Labor Department aims to make tip pooling legal again. The co-founder of ROC United, one of the groups fighting for a $15 wage, said, "It says it's possible for employers to walk away with the tips and not give them to anybody." CBS News. Who owns a tip? And some activists worry that owners might decide to keep a portion of the tips for themselves. This is an issue about income inequality. It's a race to the bottom. Maybe workers were making $15 an hour after tips. Now they could just make $7.25 or the federal minimum wage under the proposed rule, said Patricia Smith, senior counsel at the National Employment Law Project and former Obama administration solicitor of labor. Given the history that there are some employers that steal tips already, this is a way of doing what they have been doing, but it becomes legal. The Washington Post says, critics call it stealing workers' wages. The regulations are not just about sharing tips with the back of the house staff. That part would be okay. But employers would have the right to decide what to do with the tips, said Saru Jayaraman, president of Restaurant Opportunity Centers United, or ROC, an advocacy group for restaurant workers. Allowing employers to distribute tips as they see fit, Jayaraman added, would end the Department of Labor's practice as treating gratuities as the property of workers, a custom that dates to the 1974 amendments to the Fair Labor Standards Act. The people's voices in federal decision-making. With over 295,000 comments, Due by February 5th, 2018 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Comments have come in stating, I oppose the proposed tip regulations under the Fair Labor Standards Act regulation. The rule would go against decades of federal and state law and precedent safeguarding tips as the property of the workers who receive them, by allowing employers to take control of their employees' tips. The Fair Labor Standards Act was amended in 1974 to clarify that tips are to be retained by the employee except when a valid tip pooling arrangement is in place. In 2011, the DOL issued new regulations that reinforce the FLSA and over 40 years of custom and practice by the DOL and state agencies, affirming that tips are always the property of employee. If adopted, this regulation would force a vulnerable workforce further into poverty, economic instability, and vulnerability to harassment and assault. I urge the Department of Labor to withdraw this proposed rule. Ivy Slater, Hendersonville, North Carolina. Ted John Stone, Tacoma, Washington. Dorothy Black, Forest Hills, New York. Nigel Barrage, Hermitage, Tennessee. Alpha Castaneda, Texas City, Texas. Jean Garver, Hohokus, New Jersey. Verl Height, Broomfield, Colorado. Diane Nolan, Farmington, Michigan. Newsweek reports, owners not servers. Restaurant owners could even keep all the tips for themselves without telling diners. The public is entitled to understand the relative magnitude of the changes being proposed so we can comment on the proposal in a meaningful way. But so far, the public has been left in the dark.
You know, John Wooden emphasizes one of the most important things in life are relationships. And when I think about relationships, I think about all kinds of relationships that we have in our lives. And one of the really key relationships when you go out to eat is your server-customer relationship.
Servers, waiters, waitresses, they deserve it.
So it was like Christmas every time, I'd serve the table. I'd come back and, get ready to clean it up, and then boom, there's that money. It was very exciting. I was very happy about it, and it helped a lot. You got to stack those tips, plus the small check that you would get, $2.13 an hour, I think it was.
They couldn't make ends meet without those tips, because the hourly wage at a restaurant is really low.
One of the things that I noticed when I was a server, and I don't think people really put this together in their heads, but the people that worked with me weren't all my age when I was young. I mean, I had people working with me who were in their 30s and their 40s, who were mothers and fathers who this was their job. They took 2 or 3 shifts at a restaurant to make sure that they could put food on their families' tables and put a roof over their heads and send their kids to school. So this is really not only a survival job for people who are young and just starting out in the world, this is a survival job for Americans and families all across the nation.
Services, basic hospitality services are, becoming kind of robots or machines to take over.
If you take away the tips, then you're taking away someone's life, their whole, you don't know what they're working towards. For example, in Los Angeles, if you're working a waitressing job, most likely you're working towards a goal, a dream.
Pick your favorite actor. Brad Pitt used to wait tables. Jennifer Aniston used to wait tables. I can't think of any more actors.
Why would I tip?
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 Why would I tip if it's going right to the managers and not to the actual waiters? That just makes no sense to me.
It'd be hard on the customers to have a pleasant experience. It'd be hard on the waiter if they had a hard day to do that extra
So
stuff.
if you start taking away tips from those people and giving it to the restaurant owners, their rates are going to go down, their quality of living is going to go down.
You know what I love about servers? They are dreamers. They are some of your biggest dreamers that you'll ever meet. And they're usually in transition for something really big in life.
Constant work in restaurants in New York while I was trying to become stage, film, TV actress Sally Kirkland. And so not only did it help me, but
You served the customer. You were great to the customer, and the customer gave that money to you. It shouldn't be taken to you and given to someone else.
Why would I tip?
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 Tips for survival.
Tips for survival.
Tips.
For survival.
For survival.
For survival.
For survival.
For survival.
Tips for survival.